I'm really excited to be talking to Mila today, and so hope you all are too. Just a few bits to kind of run through before we get started. So this is an hour-long event. We are going to stop for a little 5-minute break, probably before we do the Q&A section. Just to kind of keep everybody focused and let you go to the toilet if you need, or get a cup of tea, whatever you need to do. So we'll let you know when that is. We want to answer as many questions as possible today. Feel free to drop them in the chat box at any point. And as I said, we'll make sure we leave enough time at the end of the session. The event is being recorded, so if I can ask everybody to keep their mics off, make sure you're on mute, and any questions, just as I said, drop them into the chat box. So just to introduce you all to the Creative Entrepreneurs Club and Fashion Foundry, for those of you who don't know, both CEC and Fashion Foundry are part of the Future Economy Company based in Scotland. The Creative Entrepreneurs Club is about connecting the creative community, upskilling and empowering. Fashion Foundry is more industry focused. We support the fashion, textiles and accessories industry. Supports with sessions like this. We offer one-to-one free sessions on the Creative Entrepreneurs site. And we're looking at what more we can do to support the industry here in Scotland to really help support and grow it. So keep an eye on our Instagram channel at Fashion Foundry. Lots of exciting things coming very, very soon. So I'm really delighted to have Mila here with us today. This is such a big topic. I think every single person I speak to mentions sustainability. I think we all want to make a change and do something different, but it's an area that we're all still learning. I certainly need to still learn so much on this area. So, which is why I've really invited Mila along today to try and help share some knowledge and help us understand a little bit more on this topic. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Mila. And Mila, let's start off by just tell us about your background. How did you get to where you are now and working for the Centre for Sustainable Fashion?
Yeah, so thank you, Katie, and hello everyone. Thank you for having me in the first place. So I have now worked at the Centre for 2 years, and before I came to the Centre, my personal background is in cultural studies and anthropology, but I also trained as a dressmaker, and for the last 10 years, over 10 years now, I have been also running my slow fashion studio, where I've been working for on basically generally commissions for individual clients, because I've been always interested in that personal relationship with people who wear my clothes. And this brought me to an interest in clothes and how people keep them and why they keep them. I've been very interested for a long time in emotional durability of clothing, and before I came to the Centre, I did a PhD at University of Huddersfield, where I looked at women's relationships with the clothes in their wardrobes, particularly the long-term relationships with everyday clothing. And what I wanted to look in the PhD was how we can use these relationships to learn about how we can design better clothes that people maybe want to keep for longer, and that people want to build relationships with. So that's how I got to the Centre, because the Centre for Sustainable Fashion, that has been around for 12 years now, is one of the key centres in the UK that has been, or one of the oldest, also research centres in the UK that have been looking at this topic. So for me, it was kind of obvious place to aspire to work at. So yeah, that's
your background.
Capsule. Yeah, how I got there.
Great. And then tell us about the Centre for Sustainable Fashion and its main aims. What have you been working on, and tell us a little bit about
So the Center for Sustainable Fashion, for those of you who may not know, is based at the University of Arts London at London College of Fashion. And I did say before that it is a research center, but for what is a distinction of the center is that it is also a core sort of education, research and knowledge exchange center. So we are working across those three areas, which we consider super important in terms of impact on the actual status quo in the industry and in the way fashion is made, used, and engaged with by people. So the center has these three core areas of education, research, and knowledge exchange. And I would say the core aim of the center is to challenge, question, and provoke to change the way the fashion system operates now, because we feel that there are some substantial things that are wrong with it, because the way we're doing things now aren't considering the social or environmental context and the impact of fashion, and that has quite crucial consequences further down the line that really need to be taken on board if we want to draw on what fashion, on the real, we feel like really deep value of fashion and what fashion could be if it was much more responsible to its context in which it exists.
Absolutely. And there's two main projects that you're working on, isn't there, Mila?
Yeah.
What are the two key projects?
Yeah. So while the center has multiple projects, and my colleagues look at different areas that including user perspectives, the relationship between art and environment, fashion activism, industry relationships. The two key projects I am working at are project that is sponsored by the AHRC. The project title is Fostering Sustainable Practices, and this particular project is looking at micro and small fashion businesses, because from the experience of the center, of my colleagues, mine as well, we know that these micro and small businesses are often, the key innovators or the key players in actually making sustainability happen, because there's amazing creative power in the UK and particularly in this micro and small fashion sector, but we at the same time know that oftentimes they struggle to survive economically.
Yeah.
So the project
is really interesting.
yeah,
isn't it? The fact that they're the ones that are really challenging the whole system, yet they're the ones with such limited budget. And there's a few on this call that can relate to that. They're really trying to make a big difference, but they struggle in terms of budget and manpower, and the worry is that at some point they will burn out, which we've had a few conversations about as well, Mila.
Yeah, so we recognize all these kind of tensions that are involved in this, and the aim of the project is first, throughout the project we've been working with almost 40 micro and small businesses that we identified through an initial survey we did, and we are trying to learn from these businesses about the kind of challenges and opportunities and things they are excited about. And one of the aims of the project is to create resources for those who support these businesses, for them to be better able to understand the way these businesses operate, the kinds of worries, but also hopes and ambitions they have, so that the support that is directed to these businesses is more suitable for that kind of business, because we also know from experience that a lot of the support that comes to fashion business is very much mainstream in the way that, you know, it works with the sort of classic measures of success, which is wholesale orders, turnover, fashion weeks, and all that's, you know, traditional story of fashion. But we see that particularly in the scope of sustainability, or in the area where we are working, we see a lot of business that's working in completely different area of interest. You know, we see businesses who start not necessarily to generate growth and increase their sales forever. We see people who are incredibly motivated for personal or family reasons, who want to work on something that matters to them, who want to see fulfillment in their work, who want to make difference in their community, who want to be, we've had this conversation, Katy, I know that lots of the businesses you work with also want to be responsible to the environment. Yes. So these are all the things that matter to micro and small businesses on a very deep, personal, almost level. And we just want to, through the project, make sure that these things are recognized as valuable metrics of measuring success and recognizing these businesses for what they are and what they want to be.
So you're providing resources and support for the businesses like us, I guess, who are supporting the fashion businesses. So do you work with any fashion businesses directly, Mila?
Yes, well, as I said, we are working with throughout the project, because this project has been now running for 2 years. We are now entering in the last 6-7 months of the project, and we'll have some final event, well, situation permitting, in March 2021, where we will launch the resources that have been created during this project.
Okay, great.
Yeah, in terms of the businesses we're working with, for those of you who are interested, there is a section about this project on the website of Center for Sustainable Fashion. Maybe we can pop the link in the chat if possible. Also, I have just written a new blog post for our website that gives you links to the businesses that we've been working with, who I think can offer some really inspiring stories. So among the examples would be Rayburn, Bethany Williams, Kit, Paternity, Phoebe English, Birdsong, and many, many others. It's, as I say, it's up to 40 people, so it's probably not scope to mention them all, but I do recommend, for those of you who do not know them, there are some inspiring stories to look at.
And we can get that on the blog, Mila.
Yeah, so I have written this blog actually with you all in mind as well, because I thought it would be really useful to have one place to go and to be able to, you know, because it's like events like this are brilliant, but it's very hard to take everything in within an hour. So I think it's handy to have a kind of additional tool to work with. So I believe my colleague will be launching the blog either tomorrow or very early next week. So we can, I don't know, Katy, if you're able to send,
I can share
links
it
to all the participants.
Of course I
So
can.
that would be one way.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, it's always good to hear and learn from others and hear some inspirational stories. And you've been working with those 40 businesses for how long, Mila, over the...
So it's now almost, well, it's just slightly over 2 years. So we have been, we've done loads of interviews. We've kind of have been building relationships with these businesses because we were really interested in learning about their perspectives from, you know, through their own words, and kind of almost mapping their journey during those 2 years. So there is lots of amazing data that we're just starting to process and bring together so that it can be shared with people. Brilliant. And that we can, you know, offer a resource to learn from all these stories.
Absolutely. Okay, so I will share that with everybody as soon as it's ready. I'll send everybody an email. So Mila, I was really keen to speak to you today as well about, so we all talk, as I said at the beginning, so many people say sustainability to me, but the biggest challenge I think that most of them face is around materials. So one, sourcing materials that they can afford, two, sourcing materials that they can do their quantities with, because of course a lot of these businesses have got such small units. And then to add to that, they also want to be as sustainable as possible. But managing all those three things are actually a real challenge. And I guess what I wanted to hear from you is, what advice have you got? Is there anything that you know, what are the biggest things that people need to look out for? And any lessons that you've learned that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, so yeah, we know Katy also from, you know, I know it from my own perspective as a designer maker, but also through our work, that materials are a big issue. At the same time, what we always like to highlight when it comes to talking about materials is that by all means materials are important, but before we even start talking about materials, there are quite a few things to consider in terms of why, what we are making and why. So for us, because as a center we want to have a very sort of systemic approach to the issues that the industry is facing, and you know, we want to address the core issues of the problems we are at the moment facing, rather than, you know, just looking at the surface level. So for us, you know, one of the key issues is obviously volume at which you know, things are produced at the moment. So clearly, you know, volumes maybe aren't such an issue for the micro and small fashion sector when it comes to comparison with the larger players. But cumulatively, if you look at lots of small businesses together, you know, there is a power which can be used in many ways, but then also cumulatively there is impact as well. And that is why, you know, we can't just dismiss the question of volume, saying, well, we're not producing nearly as much as some of the larger ones, so we don't need to worry about this. So I still think that it is very important to, before we even start thinking about products, is to kind of step back, and just as one would work out a business plan, is to work out some ideas about the purpose, why we're in this in the first place, what is the aim of what we're doing, and what is the kind of wider environmental impact maybe of what we wish to be doing, and how this also impacts people around us, but also, you know, in the ways things operate at the moment, they can impact people all around the world. So it's just, I guess, what we like to highlight in this context is that we always have to be thinking of the wider picture of any work we are doing. And then it's also thinking about the full sort of life cycle of products. So yes, it is thinking about materials, but it is also thinking about where exactly the materials come from, but also what kind of products are we making and what chance they do have to be kept for longer, what happens to them afterwards, after people are done with them. So kind of trying to, you know, have that sort of cradle to cradle understanding of the things that we create, where, you know, from the very beginning to the very end. So it's just some of those things that I would like to highlight before we even get to the materials.
I think that's really important. It is about, but one, building product to last, but two, thinking about the life cycle at the end of being with that customer. What happens to the product? So yeah, no, I think you're right to start with that, Mila. Absolutely.
And then also, you know, one, as you touched on the again on the life cycle, it's also about, and as we're crossing over to materials, is then also about specifying the right material for the right use, because, you know, a common problem is over specifying materials, for example, over specifying components. So it's being very careful about what we want to use before we even touch any material, or before we even start thinking where we can get those materials. So it's just some of the things to consider. And then in terms of sustainable materials, I think it's important to highlight that there is nothing such as sustainable material. There are materials that are maybe at the moment marketed under the name sustainable, but I think it's important to recognize that anything we do in life and any material we use has some kind of impact somewhere down the line, and we can't, you know, it's inevitable, but it is important to be aware, to inform ourselves and to make informed decisions based on what we have found out. So then we come to thinking about materials maybe in relationship to our business model. What is important for us? What are our strongest points? And then only thinking what would be the right materials used in the wider context of the business we want to be. For example, there is one business we're working with called Petit Pli. Maybe some of you have heard about them. They are making clothes that have the possibility to be expanded during the child growth, so they can expand to grow with the child for, I think, 36 months, and that is done by the pleating that is incorporating in the garments. But obviously the pleating can be only achieved on a synthetic material. So there is one element of, you know, achieving something like the longevity of the garment in the way that it can grow with the child, but obviously you can only achieve this because you have a synthetic material, which has certain impact on the environment. But it is about these trade-offs and recognizing whether the trade-offs make sense or are justifiable within your business model. So, for example, this company has made a decision that because their consideration is about the waste that is involved in throwing away a lot of children's clothing, for them within their model, it is the necessary trade-off to be made. But then it's also looking at more granular level, I guess, where those synthetic materials that they source, where they come from, and making the best decision possible along that way. So that is just one example, you know, of recognizing the tensions and recognizing the complexities and working with those and embracing those, because there are no, I'm sorry to disappoint anyone, but there are no kind of black and white solutions to sustainability. It's like everything in life, you know, there will be always trade-offs for every decision we make. What we can do is to try to do the best with the information we have available at the time. Never stop asking questions.
It's about having as much knowledge as possible, isn't it? And then making those informed decisions and balancing everything and thinking about, to your point, what is your business, what is the purpose of the business, and how you know, what will happen to these garments at the end of their life cycle, and considering everything. But it's taking in the knowledge is sometimes difficult because it's quite overwhelming. There is so much to learn. And as I said, I'm still learning, and I still feel like I've got so much to learn in order to advise as well as I would like to. But yeah, that's a really interesting example with the pleating, because I remember having this dilemma as well with the pleating, because we didn't want to ever use synthetic fabrics, but we were kind of forced to because there's no other option. But thinking about baby clothing, babies do grow, they grow really quick, you know, you're in and out of clothing very, very quickly. And where does that clothing kind of end up? So that's kind of an interesting one. So any other kind of examples like that, Mila? Because I thought that was good to hear.
Yeah, and just as we mentioned synthetic materials, at the same time, what needs to be said, I guess, is that there is synthetic materials, for example, are often presented as the bad guy, as opposed to natural materials to be, or are perceived to be, more sustainable. But it's important to recognize that there is impact of natural materials, just as synthetic materials do have their own impacts. They may be in other areas, for example, in water consumption, in land use, whereas synthetic materials may have their impacts in air pollution. Obviously, they're linked to the oil industry. So there is impact everywhere. It's just trying to learn about all these things and make informed decisions. Again, I'm highlighting that. But as there is obviously no scope for detailed conversation about every single material, I'd just like to maybe backtrack in our conversation, because at the beginning we said that I'm working on two main projects at the center. The second project is the Sustainable Fashion Glossary for Condé Nast International, that is focused especially on Vogue editors and the need of Vogue editors. The glossary is available online through Condé Nast website. Again, maybe we can share the link with you all. And there is a big section on materials within the glossary where we discussed, all these tensions that are involved in using every material. So maybe for those of you who might be looking for some kind of initial point of reference, this might be an interesting source.
As we're talking, I will try and find the link and post it into the chat box. And because I would advise everybody to look at it, because since I connected with Mila, I've been on there quite a bit. I was telling you, I find it really helpful. It's really well written, easy to use, easy to navigate, and it's simple to understand. So I would definitely use that as a resource. I will try and find it.
I can get it, Katie. I think I've got
you can get it easily and post it into the chat box. If not, I can email everybody after the event, Mila.
Yeah. Got it.
You got it? Okay, fab. Yeah. So I guess what I'm interested to hear as well, Mila, in the time that you've been with the Centre for Sustainable Fashion, what are the big lessons that you've learned? Anything that you would like to share with us during your time there?
I think we have been talking about this in a way. It's maybe again highlighting that sustainability is not a destination to arrive at. It is a journey.
Yes.
And as every journey, it has lots of stumbling blocks along the way. And I guess what it requires is the ability to kind of learn how to be comfortable with some of these complexities that we have been talking about. And if not comfortable, at least put up with them and make the most of where we're standing and where our strengths are, and where, you know, because each of us has different kind of sets of skills, different background, different, you know, context they live in. So it's, I guess it's maybe reflecting on where we can make most impact from where we stand and with what we have available to us, because not one person can do everything and can change the whole world, but lots of people building on their strengths from where they are can do a lot. And then it's trying to work together and maybe amplify the. So one of the things that we're trying to also highlight, particularly through this project that we were talking about, is that, you know, lots of small people together can amplify the impact kind of across rather than upwards. But that's fine. That's maybe just a different way of working, and it's equally as valuable as, you know, amplifying massive solutions within one business. So when lots of small solutions, small good solutions connect kind of across, that is incredibly valuable and yeah, worth building on.
Yes, yeah. I like your point, Mila, that it's a journey. I think I've said that to a few people as well. Because saying that you're a sustainable business, you know, you have to be honest that it's going to take time. You know, it's not something that happens overnight. You make changes. You're honest about your journey. You make some commitments, but you know, I think we're all just learning all the time, and it's. I don't think you can say I'm opening a sustainable business and tomorrow will be totally sustainable, because to your point, we're still producing clothes. We're still actually doing something we shouldn't, you know, perhaps overproducing. We shouldn't be doing that, you know. We need to think about, I really liked your point earlier as well about thinking about what's the purpose of the brand. Where are the garments going to go at the end of their life cycle? How do we build them to last longer? Where do they go at the end of the life cycle? And then what do we do to make sure that we're using fabrics with a lower environmental impact? But to your point as well, no fabric's got no environmental impact. Everything's got some environmental impact, and it's going into it with open eyes. Learning all the time, taking, you know, as much information as you can and making informed decisions that is right for you and your business. But I think it's definitely some really good points that have been made there. So I don't know if there's anything else, Mila, that you want to cover before we move on to some questions, if anybody's got any.
I guess we were talking about maybe the lack of resources.
Yes.
that businesses also are facing. So I would just like to point everyone, well, first to the glossary that maybe is one easy point of reference for those who are at the beginning of their journey and maybe are looking for some pointers in different directions and things to consider. Within that, I would highlight the section on values and mindsets, which, as I said before, for us is the core where we should all begin, and then only to move on. You know, we first need to think like why we are in this in the first place and what is our aim, and then yes, by all means, then let's look at what is maybe the least impact business model we can go for, what are the materials we can use, how we can amplify our social impact in the community we're working at. But first we need to, I think, know why we are doing this and be quite clear about that. And that kind of journey will, at the end, also, I think, build a stronger story and stronger case for a brand. So it's certainly not waste of time in that sense either, because the clearer you are at the very beginning about what it is that you are actually trying to achieve, the easier the journey will be for you, but the easier it will be also to communicate it to other people.
Mhm. We've been talking a lot about that as well, actually. Mila, last month we focused on vision, the importance of vision and core purpose. And really, to your point, once you nail that, it makes everything so much easier because it directs all your strategic decisions, because you know what the business stands for. And I think, you know, everybody is using the word sustainability, but it's great when you hear of a new concept that's looking at it slightly differently, that's doing something different to extend the lifestyle, or putting it back into a circular economy, or, you know, looking at different ways and innovative ways to change the system. But I would 100% agree with you. Thinking about what is the purpose of your business? What do you stand for? And take time to think about that, because you know, it will direct everything you do, and it will make everything so much simpler for you further down the line.
And then just to follow up on the resources, we can all look at, there's another, I think, valuable resource for anyone who's at the beginning, but also at any point of the journey. We as the center partnered with the Caring Group, and together we created an online free 6-week course.
Okay.
The title is the title of the course is Fashion and Sustainability: Understanding Luxury Fashion in a Changing World.
Okay.
And again, the course can be accessed through our website. It's free, and it had so many iterations over 171 countries with thousands of users and you know, graduates. And I think it can be a great help for people who are, you know, considering where to start and where to go, and, you know, or those who are in the middle and not quite sure, you know, whether they need to pivot or rethink. So yeah.
So that's a 6-week free online course. And it's called, sorry Mila, what was that? Fashion and Sustainability.
It's Fashion and Sustainability. Understanding Luxury Fashion in a Changing World. Again, I can pop the link in the chat.
In a Changing World. That sounds great, actually. World. Okay, fab. Pop that in there, and then if anybody's interested, is that? I won't ask you another question until it's on. Give you a minute to.
Yeah, sorry, go on, Katie.
No,
I think I can multitask if
you
my
can
internet can.
Do you know what? I actually find it quite hard to multitask when you're on Zoom. It's kind of different when you're off the screen, but when you're kind of on the screen, seeing yourself as well, I think sometimes sends me into a little bit of but no, I'm really excited about that. I think that's something that a lot of people will be interested in. So thank you very much. Anything else that you can point us towards? Any other resources, or the glossary? We've got the course. We'll have a look at your website.
Then there is one of my colleagues, Professor Kate Fletcher, who maybe some of you may be familiar with. She has recently written an Earth Logic plan for fashion with her long-term collaborator, Mathilde Tam. It's about fashion that kind of reverts the logic that currently is mainly on profit, but it's about fashion that puts Earth first.
Okay.
So it is a great inspirational book that also, I'm just putting it in the chat,
Fabulous.
Can be accessed online.
Okay.
So maybe, you know, for that stage of thinking about purpose and the whys.
Yes.
And what's that could be.
I'll have a look at that resource as well. Great. I can recommend Future Learn as a learning platform, Liam's saying. Thank you for that recommendation as well. Brilliant. Okay, great. That's some really good resources there that I'm certainly going to be looking at as well. So I don't know if anybody has, Mila, first of all, is there anything else that you want to talk about before I ask the audience on any questions?
No, thank you. I think I'd love to, if anybody has some questions, we can obviously go on forever, but
I know.
it's not about us here. So,
well, that's what I'm really keen to say to everybody now. I mean, it's great to hear from Mila an introduction about what she's doing at the Centre for Sustainable Fashion, understand her background, and learn about the resources and things that we can look towards. But actually, what we really want to do is answer some questions that you may have, because as I said, I speak to people every week, and sustainability is the biggest topic that we talk about, and I can't answer everything. I don't have the answers to everything. As I said, I'm learning, and Mila's got so much more knowledge than I do. So if there's any questions, please drop them into the chat box. I don't know if we have our 5-minute break now to allow everybody to have a little think and pop something in there, and then we'll come back. Does that sound like a plan? Yeah, great. Okay, so we will pause. Feel free to kind of leave and come back in 5 minutes. It's 10:02, and then we'll save the last 10 or so minutes for some Q&A questions. Okay, don't know if anybody's going.
yeah. Well, I'll go. See you in a bit.
See you in a bit. I can't seem to get the speaker view anymore. Oh, that's it. Okay. Okay, great. So we've got one question in the chat box from Jolene. I would be interested to know if Mila can tell us specifics on what she did with paternity. I love this brand, so setting her work in context would be really useful.
Thank you. That's a great question, and actually another great example to talk about, because paternity is who actually half of paternity is based in Scotland.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh.
because paternity was started by Anna Mary, who's based in London, and Grace Winteringham, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, who I believe lives near Glasgow.
Ah, okay.
They're a great example of designers who start off as designers producing products, but actually throughout the process of running their business, they have rethought this way of working, and they're now kind of sliding between making products more towards actually using their design skills and creative thinking to work in other areas. So paternity is, as you, Jolene, would know, is based around using patterns as patterns as, you know, fabric patterns or any patterns that are found in the environment or around us as an inspiration of tracking patterns of our ways of living and learning about how about the interconnections and creatively thinking about the interconnections. So it's about learning, very much living with nature and learning from nature. And paternity are a great example of a business who use designer skills and their original designer training to move away from actually making product, but using their skills to work, to inspire other people to think differently. So Anna and Grace are now doing lots of courses for various companies that are more about creative thinking and other ways of looking at things. So it's very much working at the, you know, it's coming back to the purpose discussion we had, where they're using their creative and the design thinking and the kind of boldness that both of them have to actually inspire other people to think differently. And I guess in terms of the conversation we had before, this exemplifies also those other ways of working as a designer. So it's thinking about using one's designer skills to move beyond a product. So it's maybe getting in the frame of thinking where, as a designer, I don't necessarily need to create product to actually still work within design and benefit from, or help other benefit from my designer skills.
That's really interesting.
So I don't know if that answered your question, Jolene, or...
I think it did. I'm sure it did. Okay, we've got a few more questions that have come in. That's really inspiring, though. It's about how to use your skills in a different way and be innovative, not just thinking about the product, you know, thinking about other ways. So, okay, so we've got a question here from Pete, I think is the next one. Is there one key process change that you've seen that has resulted in reduced waste in a clothing manufacturer's process? Would it be stock levels / manufacturing process?
By all means, reducing stock levels is a very good way of reducing. But, you know, I maybe would again reiterate that even maybe first rethinking why we're building the stock and what is it for and what kind of system that operates in. There has been a lot of discussion, especially as a result of the COVID-19 crisis, about stock levels. We all know that there are lots of, you know, storage spaces kind of bursting
Yeah.
from all the stock generated, and that's only in the period of a few months. And I guess that is the kind of watershed moment of thinking how we even got to having this problem. So I guess reducing stock levels by all means, but maybe thinking first whether we maybe need those stock levels in the first place. So you know, there are lots of businesses who are moving towards making to order, or who are working in pre-order batches. Like one of the businesses we're working with paint a jacket. Now they're slightly changing their way of operating, but up till now they worked in a release of 3 batches per year, where they first made sure that they have enough orders to actually make the batch happen, and then they would kind of commission all the making. So that is another way of approaching business, but also another way of, you know, an inspiring way of using your designer creativity to think about how we can do things differently. And sort of, I mean, thinking outside the box is a bit kind of tried phrase, but, you know, maybe like completely jumping out of the box and thinking in a completely different box.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, Mila, I was just going to say that the traditional way of working, and certainly my experience, is the seasons have become so, I think, have caused so much waste and high stock levels, because we stop selling a season actually when the weather's just kind of turning, and actually that's when you need the stock. So there's a real kind of, in the fashion industry historically, and I think that's slowly changing, you know, you have to stop selling your kind of spring summer stuff and launch the autumn winter. It's all at the wrong time, and actually it kind of creates this kind of, it does create waste, the way that we buy for the seasons. So I've heard of a few fashion kind of companies now questioning that and maybe hopefully moving away from it, but it probably takes some time to kind of get there. But I do think the seasons have got a lot to answer for in the way that we've been trading them. I don't know if you agree in that, but
yeah, by all means, yeah.
So I'm conscious of time, and we've got another couple of questions, I think, here. Okay, so we've got Morag. Okay, she does a lot of interview-led projects and workshops which centre around understanding the relationship between people and their clothes, and actively using the insights to rethink design processes. I would love to know more about your insights when investigating emotional durability of clothing through the lens of a designer maker practice.
Well, thank you for that. What I try to look at was learning from the stories of people and their actual wardrobes, because as a designer maker, I first started off making, and maybe that is also a good way of illustrating the journey and rethinking one's process. So I started, as pretty much everyone, making my own designs and hoping that people will like them and will want to buy them. They were mostly one-off pieces or very limited kind of collections, made to order. But as I started talking to my individual clients about how I think about clothes and what matters to me, people suddenly not suddenly, but gradually started opening up and talking about other clothes that they had in wardrobes, and so I had clients started bringing me things that they had for 30, 40 years. And then that really mattered to them, but they never wore them again because, for example, they were torn, or they like literally disintegrated through frequent wear, or they belonged to their parents and they would always have wished to wear them, but they didn't quite fit. So I then started gradually remaking and repairing things, and sometimes like really reconstructing things, because I came across garments which I remember once one client's garment that I went to the Ashmolean Museum to look at the techniques of restoring old textiles, because it was in such a state that I was trying to kind of put it back together. And she really insisted that, you know, it doesn't matter to her how long it takes me, how much it costs. She just wants that garment because, you know, it just means so much to her. And so this made me interested in why some things matter so much and others don't matter at all, and how basically when we look at a more maybe personal level of it as a designer, because I make things myself, I just wanted, you know, you then care about what happens to what you spend several days on or weeks sometimes. So I just wanted to learn how to make things that would have this kind of resonance with clients. And when I spoke to my clients, and then the women I spoke to during my research, there were there were 4 kind of key learning themes that came out from the conversation. First was the relevance for their lifestyle and the ways that clothes actually fit with the life they live, which I kind of, in the research, I call it enablers. So the way clothes enable you to do whatever you want to be doing without thinking too much about them. And then it was sensory experiences. That was a big theme for me, because I noticed through my clients when, for example, I was doing fittings, that the first thing people do before they even look at themselves in the mirror, they, for example, put their hand in or try to look for a pocket.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of, it's not necessarily, for example, the same client wouldn't have asked me before if they can have pockets, but you see that that's kind of sort of that sensory moment that you feel like it should be there, but it's not, or, you know, it is there and you're trying whether it's deep enough and all that. And I had another client telling me, for example, that no, they can't have this fabric that we kind of chose together because actually they wouldn't like the sound of it after a while. So it was like these little examples made me think about it more. And then through my research, I found that actually a lot of the time we focus on the visual side of clothes, but, you know, the touch, I guess, is something that we're more aware of in terms of, you know, like a pleasant feel of a material. But then there are other kind of subtle things, like, for example, the pocket example, or the sense, and lots of other things that really do matter to people, and they rarely get taught at design schools.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
And then it was about, you know, how your clothes, not only looking at, you know, individual clothes in your wardrobes, but thinking about how they connect or don't connect to all other things. So I guess from design point of view is thinking about, you know, a little bit how your design can be integrated with other things that are out there. And then from the point of view of someone who buys and wears clothes, is making the right decisions so that, you know, whatever you get fits into whatever you have or wish to have. Because a lot of the time it's the question of, you have a great garment that has great potential, but then you have nothing to wear with it, and hence that garment doesn't get used at all. So recognizing that a little bit more, and then also how different things in your wardrobe connect through time. So how the wardrobe is almost an accumulation of, you know, your life story. So maybe you wear something entirely new with something that you've had for 25 years, and that is something very strong for many of the women I talk to and gives them lots of pleasure. So, and that goes slightly against that kind of narrative that we're being fed, that you should basically change your wardrobe every season, because there's no relevance in old. So I guess those are the 4 key points, but yeah, I'm conscious of time.
Yes, I know.
as
Well,
well.
that's us at 3:05 now. Let me just quickly check here. Becky's just saying, so Becky, I used to work with Becky, as I said at the beginning, at Reece. She was our garment tech on menswear. So she's just saying, I love the comment about sensory experience and technical roles. I think this is an area that I am becoming very aware of. We spent a lot of time at Reece listening to collars and feeling for pockets, how comfortable the item is to wear and use. So just thank you so much for your answers. So that's brilliant. So hopefully we've managed to answer some good key questions, and everybody's taken something from today. I think definitely the main points that I've taken is to, you know, if you're launching your own business, think about what your business stands for, your values, your mindset. Then think about the least impact business model, and then think about your impact on the social community. And Mila's shared lots of really amazing resources, which are still in the chat box if you want to quickly kind of copy them, and feel free to contact me if there's anything you've missed. We will be sharing this recording, checkouts, we'll share it on social media, we'll share the link on social media, but feel free to email me if there's anything else you feel like you've missed or wanted to ask. But thank you everybody for joining us. I really have enjoyed today, and a big thank you to Mila for her time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Really good. And as I said, such a hot topic that we've all got so much to learn from. So appreciate all your time. So we'll just stay on, Mila, just for 2 minutes, and then I'll just say bye to everybody else. Thanks again for joining, and keep an eye on our session that's happening next month. Next month is all about range planning. How do you range plan a collection? So again, check out our Instagram at Fashion Foundry, and hopefully I will speak to some of you very soon. Take care, and thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Some comments in there. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Lots of positive comments. I'll just wait for there's 3 more still on.
I'll make a note of sending you the blog link when it's live.
That would be amazing. Thank you. And I you know the one thing I forgot to do, but I will. It's going on to our social media, was to share your survey. I meant to say that at the very end.
Yeah.
I forgot. But we'll share it on social media, and we'll also I'll email everybody that was on here today to fill it in as well. I'm just gonna I'm just going to remove some people that haven't hung up yet. Just 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And then feel a bit rude doing that, but there we go. Okay, I think it's just us now. Yeah. I thought that was really good. Thank you so much.
Did it work, do you think?
I think it was brilliant. And I'm sorry, because perhaps I jumped onto the fabric when I actually had so much more to talk about when it comes to values and that kind of area. I feel like maybe I jumped a little bit ahead. But
no, that's fine. I think it's important as well, you know, to address the things that you know that people want to hear about. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that was
totally
really
fine.
Yeah, really, really good. And honestly, I can't thank you enough, Mila, for your time.
Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure. And, you know, I mean, that's what we're in this for making a difference. So if we can help people in this way as well.
Yeah. And you know what, I've been amazed at how many people, and I'm sure it's the same in London, but how many people in Scotland are so committed to this sustainability journey and really genuinely want to make a difference. And I was watching that program. Did you watch it, The Misguided in Manchester, the fast fashion?
No, I didn't, but I heard about it. You know, we're in France, so we don't have proper sort of
you don't have
television.
You'll have to try and watch it. But I just then kind of dreamt up this notion, because she was talking about how Manchester is the capital for fast fashion. I thought, God, wouldn't it be amazing if Scotland could be the capital for more of a slow or, you know, honest fashion? Do you know what I mean?
There you go.
Yeah.
Your marketing line.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But do you know what? Scotland's small enough to actually do something and have that collaborative approach.
Yeah, yeah.
So who knows? Who knows? But definitely something that I'd be committed to
Yeah.
supporting. So
Yeah, and also like drawing on the heritage you've got there. Sorry to interrupt you.
no, yeah, definitely. But Scotland's kind of a brand in itself, and it has a real history a huge history, fashion, textiles history. So yeah, it would be. And Scotland, what I've learned about Scotland from moving back here, because actually I've never really worked in Scotland, it's always been London, is that everybody wants to do the right thing here. You know, there is much more of a, London is much more of a kind of cutthroat, profit sales, and that's the world I'm from. But there is a different mindset here, so maybe we can do something with that. Who knows?
Yeah. And one thing I'm now thinking that I've forgotten to mention, but when we come back to the materials, like one way, I know it's really difficult for small businesses with minimum orders and things like that, but one thing I know worked for me as a business, but I know works for other people, is to build relationship with particular
mills,
suppliers that
yes
that you admire or would like to work with. And there's always, not always, but a lot of the time there is a way, to find ways of how you can get hold of something.
I have spoken to them quite a bit about that as well, but that is a really good point. When we did the talk with Vin, the repairable sneaker that I was telling you about, he just basically pitched it into the supplier, and they were so into the idea that they've kind of agreed to do small quantities because they want to be part of the business. So but yeah, that's a really good point. It's a really good point. And I'll make sure I share that. I'll send everybody a little thank you after this. I've written down everybody that's joined, so I'll send a thank you, and anything we've forgotten about, including the survey, I'll put on the email. But I won't take up any more of your time, Mila, because I know I've taken up so much of your time, and you're really busy.
Pleasure.
Thank you again.
Sorry, I've been late in answering, but it's been a mad week.
Oh, don't worry. If there's anything that I can support you with, anything I can support at all, then please let me know, because I'd love to return the favor in some way.
Well, thank you. I mean, by all means, we'll get in touch, but don't feel indebted, because it's not a
no, but I want to help. I really believe in what you guys are doing, and anything I can do to support, I would be more than happy to. So
no, but actually, sorry to interrupt.
No.
It's just personally, I would be really interested in your next session. If you don't mind me joining.
Yeah, of course. I'll send you the link.
That would be great.
Yeah, that's fine. We're doing kind of one kind of topic, one theme, if you like, every month. So last month was about the importance of vision and core purpose. This month is about sourcing and sustainability, and we had my ex-colleague from Reese, the fabric and trims buying manager, joined us for that session on the sourcing, your office's sustainability. And next session is talking about range planning, how to range plan. So that will be a smaller kind of group discussion to allow open kind of dialogue. But if it gets filled up quickly, then we'll hold another session.
So would it be okay for me to join?
Of course. I want you to join, yes. I want you to join.
I mean, as an audience,
Yeah, no, I'd love you to. And input as well, if you'd like. Yeah, definitely. I'll keep you up to date with everything that we're doing, Mila. And if there's anything you want to join in on, just let me know.
Thank you.
So and we're actually hoping to link up. This is between you and I, because nobody knows this yet, and it's not fully been agreed. But do you know the Impact Summit? It's run by some guys.
But not.
It's run by some guys in Edinburgh, but they get some really good people. It's at the end of October. It's all industries, so it's not just fashion. But we are hoping to link up. We're kind of in agreement with them and just working out prices. But we want to link up with them. So they will be, from October, we'll be collaborating with them and doing events together, because they have the time and the resource to get big names kind of involved, and really we want to make a difference. So I'll share that news with you as soon as it's official.
That would be great.
I can tell you more, but and then we're hopefully launching our incubator program at the end of the month, in line with the Impact Summit. And the
great.
idea with that is, as I said to you before, we'll take the designers through a 9-month tailored program of support. And at the end of that 9-month program, they'll be migrating onto our e-commerce website, and it will all be about brands that are committed to doing things in the right way and being honest about their journey and sustainable as they can. So it's all kind of happening. So I'll let you know as and when it's all been confirmed.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
Timelines.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll definitely.
Well done.
We'll get there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
Great.
I
Well,
appreciate
thank
your time.
you.
And have a lovely weekend when it comes.
Yeah, likewise.
All right. We'll
Bye.
see you soon. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Bye.